death of Floyd. Dow is already serving a 3.5-year sentence for a conviction on federal charges of violating Floyd's civil rights during the incident. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Slow and go in Glendale. It's troubles in Paramount. Mid-City trying to clear a crash in Boyle Heights. It's a wreck affecting our carpool lane on the 10 East at Soto Street. The carpool lane block. Hard to get to the 101 is where things slow down. Mid-City on that Santa Monica Freeway 10. Eastbound side of the 10 at Vermont. 2 left lanes are taken up with a crash here involving a motorcyclist. We're loaded up from Washington Boulevard. Paramount. It's a wreck on the 105 East at Paramount Boulevard. Onto the right side. The on-ramp partially blocked here. Coming away from the 710 to Busy Drive. And Glendale. It's a wreck in center traffic lanes on the 134 West at San Fernando Road. Center lanes blocked as you get towards the 2 is where the slow drive begins.
Fall into autumn hiring with Indeed. Their all-in-one solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers put up 13 runs in San Diego on Monday. Mookie Betts hit a grand slam. He now has 31 homers this season. The Dodgers take 3 or 4 from the Padres to move to 19 games over 500. Former Lakers star Derek Fisher is the new boys basketball coach at Crespi High School in Encino. He coached the New York Knicks for 2 years and the LA Sparks for 3. Dorsey High School's football team will play King Drew at the Coliseum in a city section matchup on October 27th. Rams coach Sean McVay said wide receiver Cooper Kupp will miss the first 2 preseason games. Kupp is recovering from a hamstring injury. The Chargers are expecting their defense to be one of the best in the NFL this season with the addition of former UCLA linebacker Eric Kendrick. Kendrick was an 8-year standout with Minnesota. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions.
Our 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
I jump up on the stage and do my money dance. I throw some money out and watch the money land. I do my money dance. I do my money dance. I jump up on the stage.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you with us today, and specifically in this hour as we talk about the following. In a world of nearly 8 billion people, 8 billion folk on the planet, there are 2,755 billionaires, according to Forbes magazine. 2,755 billionaires on the globe. Of those 2,755, 14 are black. Of those 14, 8 are African American. 2 of those are women. Yesterday on this program, we had a spirited conversation about what it means to get the bag, as we say these days. Who and what get exploited when your end and aim is to get the bag by any means necessary. If you missed our conversation yesterday with Dr. Reeves, you should go to our podcast and check it out. So, again, a fascinating dialogue yesterday with Dr. Reeves in our second hours, I believe. So check out the podcast of yesterday's program if you did not hear it. So we were talking about getting the bag yesterday. Today, a conversation in this hour with author Shomari Wills about black fortunes, namely the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. I am pleased to welcome Shomari Wills to this program. Sho, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Tavis. Can you hear me okay? It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you here, man. I hear you well. Thank you for coming on. Glad we have the hour. A lot to talk about. Let me just start with this. You heard me say a moment ago, we had a fascinating and spirited dialogue yesterday talking about getting the bag and really what happens and who gets exploited in the process of getting the bag. And what came out of that conversation is that we are living in a moment now, certainly where everybody black in Hollywood, not everybody, but a whole lot of black folk whose names we know, many of whom I know personally, everybody in this business these days is all about getting the bag. Everybody wants to be a billionaire. Everybody wants to be on the Forbes list. I mean, that seems to be the end and aim, to become a billionaire and to get on that Forbes list. And I ain't mad at anybody for doing that. As I said yesterday, I'm like Mary J. and Jay-Z. I ain't knocking no hustle. But we had, a fascinating conversation about what that means, that becomes the end and aim of black folk, to be a billionaire, to get on the Forbes list. Let me just start with your read of that. You weren't here for this conversation yesterday, but what's your read of this moment that we find ourselves in? Well, that seems to be the goal of everybody, and then we'll work our way into this conversation about you and your work.
Right. Well, drawing from my work a little bit, one of the things that I talk about is how these early black millionaires build a lot of the infrastructure for black folks, a lot of the institutions, the HBCUs, the communities, so on and so forth. And a lot of them did not go on to be Rockefellers with the, type of incredible generational wealth that their white counterparts had, but they were able to build a lot of infrastructure for black folks. So I think, kind of looking at today, I think being too singularly focused on, where you rank on the Forbes list, it can lead to, neglecting areas where our community needs help.
Mm-hmm. It's a powerful frame that you put us in. My friend Connie Rice always says in these conversations, we got to get our frame right. And I'm thinking, as you were talking, Sho, just a moment ago, about how we get this frame right for this conversation. And I think the first way we get the frame right is to talk about what you just raised, which is that these first 6 black millionaires, who we'll talk about in a moment. And by the way, there are now some 35,000 plus black millionaires in the country. I mentioned 14 black billionaires worldwide, 8 African American, but there are 35,000 plus millionaires in this country, black millionaires in this country right now. So we've come a long way from those 6. But the point you made a moment ago is that these first 6 at least made their money being about the business of helping to build much of the black infrastructure. I ask this question: are the black millionaires we're talking about today, the black billionaires we're talking about today, can the same be said of them, that they're helping to build black infrastructure as they make their money?
I think it runs the gamut. I think there are those who are really actually dedicated to the work of, helping black folks, wherever possible. We see their, works in public, a lot of what they're doing. And I do think there are a lot of folks who are more focused on the materialism, focused on competing with, white billionaires and millionaires of means. So I think it runs the gamut. I don't think it's the same call that it once was, that when you held a tremendous amount of wealth, that you felt like you had to help your people now. I feel like, it's split now. Some people engage in helping the community. Some people are just, being, regular, millionaires and billionaires.
Mm-hmm. How do you read that? Is that an indictment, or do people have, they have the agency and they have the agency and the speaking of getting your frame right, let me rephrase this. On the one hand, I can read that as an indictment that many of these black millionaires and billionaires today don't feel a particular responsibility to the community. They don't spend their time trying to build a black infrastructure. I can read that as an indictment on the one hand. On the other hand, that is their right to self-determination. It's their money. They do what they want to do with it, right? Yes, no?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I think there are those who definitely have no interest in helping, the community.
Right.
But I think, that's the minority. I think, one thing that I think about when I think about, these, early black millionaires that I wrote about,
right,
is that they all lived in the black community, no matter how rich they were. for the most part, they still lived in the black community. Mm-hmm. They had the nicest house and the biggest mansion, and they still had to actually see the way that black folks were living on a day-to-day basis, deal with the problems people in the community were coming to them about the way, discrimination was manifesting. And so I think today's millionaires and billionaires are not, the discrimination is not right outside their window, so to speak. So I think.
Yeah, they're not connected in that way. I hear you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I hear the point you're making. When we come forward, let's continue this. I want to come right back to that point about the proximity that today's millionaires and billionaires have to other black people. We'll talk about it with Shomari Wills and get deeper into this book, Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
What does access mean?
Access means owning a home. Access means growing my business.
Access means building generational wealth. No matter your goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Programs and initiatives provide the tools and resources to help you reach them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, life doesn't stop when cancer starts. After diagnosis, treatment is vital. But for some, just getting there, to appointments, chemo, or radiation, is a major challenge. You can change that. Volunteer to give rides with the American Cancer Society Road to Recovery program. Driving for a few hours of your day can make a life-saving difference for someone with cancer. Visit cancer.org/drive to learn more.
Hey LA, are you feeling the heat? LA DWP has rebates up to $225 on new air conditioners to help you beat the heat and save money. Plus, you can sign up for level pay to get predictable monthly bills for easy budgeting. Stay cool. Visit ladwp.com/cool-LA. That's ladwp.com/cool-LA.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SavedByTheSkin.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SavedByTheSkin.org. It could save your life. SavedByTheSkin.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Sounds different. This is Tavis Smiley.
Just getting started really in this hour, and I guess Shomari Wills, talking about his book, Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. Before we get straight away into his text, we've been talking about a dialogue we had on this program yesterday about what it means to be getting the bag in 2023 and beyond, and who gets exploited in the process, and again, a rich conversation yesterday about getting the bag, and here we come today with this conversation that was already on the schedule about the first 6 African Americans who became millionaires in this country. We'll get into that in just a second. But you said something a moment ago, Show, that got my attention, and that is this idea that those who you write about in your book, we'll get to that again momentarily, these black folk who became millionaires still lived in the black community, so their proximity, they saw black people every day. They weren't disconnected from it. These days, these 35,000 plus millionaires that exist in Black America and the handful of Black billionaires that exist in Black America, what happens these days is really the exact opposite, right? You get the bag and you move out to the vanilla suburbs to get away from these Negroes. You want to get away from all the stuff that you've had to navigate on your way to the top. But that's very different than the narrative of these first 6 millionaires that we'll talk about as we move through this hour. Your take on that and what that means, if anything.
Well, I think traditionally when you look at the history of Black folks, the millionaire class, the elite class, never really separated itself as it did for, the white community. And that goes all the way up from, the 1800s all the way up until the 1970s. So that wasn't part of our tradition to, get the bag, so to speak, and to try to move up to the so-called nicest part of town. And, that really kept the resources very close to where the problems were. And as things have changed and, folks, very understandably, they want to live in the best neighborhoods with the best schools, so on and so forth. And, they tend to move not necessarily in the Black community, but outside of the Black community to the, 1% neighborhoods. They may be very well aware of the problems in the Black community, but they're not experiencing them and seeing them on a day-to-day basis. A lot of these folks were very wealthy, but, some days they would walk to work instead of taking their horse and carriage and kind of just look around and see what's going on in the Black community. And, that's not something, that happens as much. And now that's not to say that there aren't folks like, Robert Smith and, Byron Allen and Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry who are, doing great work. But, in general, your average Black millionaire, Black billionaire is less likely to live in a Black neighborhood than they were back in the day. And I just think, sometimes if you're not seeing the problems and experiencing them and having people come to your front door with the problems, that's a barrier to those resources being deployed, to solve those problems.
Yeah. Let me. There are two things that came to my mind, Show, while you were talking, and we'll get into your book. The first thing that came to my mind was that we are this program is nationally syndicated, but we're obviously flagshipped in Los Angeles in Leimert Park. As I say at the top of this program every day, live from Leimert Park. And Leimert Park, as you know, is adjacent to a very wealthy Black enclave. There are really two Black enclaves in this country that have alternated for years now as number one and number two for the wealthiest Black enclaves in the nation. There is this area adjacent to this studio, Baldwin Hills, Ladera Heights, Baldwin Vista, View Park. This enclave here in Southern California for years, again, has alternated with Prince George's County in Maryland as the number one and number two wealthiest Black enclaves in the country. 1 year it's this area, 1 year it's Prince George's County. But in Prince George's County and in, again, the area of Baldwin Hills, View Park, Ladera Heights, this area has a lot of Black wealth in it. I raise that because if you drive through this particular area, from time to time you'll see these billboards. I saw one the other day. There are these billboards show that say, "Welcome to the Black Beverly Hills." Welcome to the Black Beverly Hills. And those who are listening right now in the LA area know exactly of what I speak because they've seen these billboards as well. And every time I see that billboard or see one of those billboards, I kind of cringe, and I don't know what to think of that. On the one hand, I get what the producers of this message are saying, welcome to the Black Beverly Hills. On the other hand, I don't like this notion that we frame this particular enclave as the Black Beverly Hills. Why can't we just be who we are, right? But this framing of your being invited or welcome to the Black Beverly Hills just annoys me from time to time. And I thought about that while you were talking about, what Black folk do when they get money. So if you're Black and you still decide to stay over here, then you're living in Ladera Heights, you're living in Baldwin Hills, you're living in View Park. You're not living in the Black Beverly Hills. They would never call themselves the white, they would never call themselves the white Ladera Heights, the white View Park, the white Baldwin Hills. So I thought about that. It's just something that I just wanted to put out there because it annoys me. And when you mentioned it, my mind sort of went there. The second thing I thought about, though, while you were talking, Show, is the following, that and you listed a few names. Most of, and I'm trying to think of one who really doesn't fit into this, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but most of these black folk who become millionaires, certainly those who become billionaires, derive a lot of their capital. They make a lot of their money, if not most or all of it, from the black community. Bob Johnson became a billionaire off of black entertainment television watched by black folk. Tyler Perry became a billionaire off of movies that were supported by black folk. I could do this all day long if I had the time. You take my point. That so often these black millionaires and black billionaires make their money off the black community, which takes us full circle back to that point earlier show of whether or not they have a particular responsibility to this community, not just to pick up the bag and run away or not to be connected to building black infrastructure. Is there an argument to be made that they do in fact have a particular responsibility to the community that enriched them in the first place? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think they do, and unfortunately I think that will become clear as time goes on. I think, we're coming off of the era from 2008 to 2016 where, black folks were feeling really good. We were feeling like there was a lot of progress. And that kind of, those good feelings and the progress that was made kind of papered over some of the problems that were still there. And I think we're entering into an era not just where those problems are starting to bubble up, but we have folks that are, Ron DeSantis, who are, in my opinion, fomenting white supremacy and, directly trying to attack black people. So I think as time goes on, it's going to be harder and harder to pretend like working around the margins is okay. I think, there was a time where it's like, I'm going to do a little bit here, a little bit there, and, send out a press release. And, I've done my part.
Yeah.
But I just think we're going to entering into a time where it's just going to be very, very clear, that those who have the resources to help our community, it's really going to become nearly existential, whether they get involved or not.
I take your point. Let me move from that now to the book, Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. I know the answer to this question, but I want the audience to hear the answer. So there's a familial connection for you, of course. But tell me about the backstory of why researching this text was on your bucket list. I'm always fascinated by the backstory, what motivates people to do what they do creatively. So tell me why this project became of interest to you, Sho.
It was really, I was in journalism school at the time that the project occurred to me to do, and I was also working for a Caribbean newspaper in New York, the New York Carib News. And they sent me to Jamaica for the 50th anniversary of the country, which I think it's the 60th anniversary this week or something. So I think it's almost exactly 10 years ago. And when I went there, everybody's like, you got to go to this place called Devon House. They have amazing ice cream. And so I get there, and it's this big Victorian mansion surrounded by palm trees with a little ice cream shop on it. And I didn't try the ice cream. I wanted to know about the mansion. And so they took me through the mansion, and it happened to belong to the first black millionaire in Jamaica, this guy named George Stabile. Had an amazing story. This guy was working on a ship in the 1820s in Jamaica. The ship crashed. Luckily, he was a strong swimmer, and he swam to the shore, which happened to be the coast of Venezuela, and he found a gold mine, and ended up taking control of that abandoned gold mine and becoming, a millionaire. And he had this great rivalry with the royal family. They actually built a road that went around his house, so they didn't have to look at his house when they were coming and going in Jamaica. And I said, wow, this is an incredible story, and I wondered if there were more stories like that out there. And I just think that combined with, having a consciousness of media and in the way that black poverty is simplified, to kind of make black people seem helpless and impotent, I wanted to see if I could find stories about incredible individuals in America who had overcome, the odds to become, some of our earliest titans of industry. And that's where I started my research. And, I ended up finding not one, not two, but, half a dozen millionaires who all had, incredible stories and contributed to the country in, amazing ways.
Yep. And tell me, I mentioned the familial connection. Tell me about your great-great-great-grandfather.
So my great uncle. His name was John Mott Drew. He was the son of a slave, my fourth great grandfather, Napoleon Bonaparte Drew, who was the first black man to own property in Powhatan, Virginia, in 1867, shortly after he was liberated. He actually ended up selling that land and giving some of the money to his sons, my third great grandfather and my third great uncle, John Mott Drew. John Mott Drew took some of that money and he started a trolley line in Darby and Scarsdale, Pennsylvania, which he later sold to what became SEPTA. And he took some of that money and invested in the stock market and, kind of hit it big before the crash and became a millionaire. And, he ended up owning a Negro League baseball team and retiring, shortly after the market crashed. But he was able, to help folks in my family for generations, go to college, own property, so on and so forth. And, I just saw the way in which it impacted, my family's life. My grandmother was able to get her PhD from Harvard in the 1950s as a black woman, because of the opportunities that, my ancestors had, set up for her. So that was my, connection. And wanting to tell that story and also dig into the story and learn more and flesh it out.
Yeah. What's it mean? What's it feel like when you do the research and discover that kind of backstory in your personal family history, that you're a part of that kind of lineage? Particularly, I'm still laughing at SEPTA. Everybody knows SEPTA back east. So when that's a part of your family heritage. How do you process that when you do the research and come across that story?
Well, it's interesting because I never knew that my great uncle Johnny Drew was a millionaire. I knew he had money, that was always known. But I never knew he had a millionaire because he was a millionaire. My mom would talk about him all the time and how much pride that they had. He owned the local Negro League baseball team, and his brother, my great-great-grandfather, owned a ice cream shop. And just how much, they loved that their family owned these two institutions, the ice cream shop and the baseball team, and, the way they used to help people and, the way they, sent their kids to college and the great-grandkids to college. And, I knew that, there was wealth there, but I wasn't aware until I started talking to some relatives and digging into it. It's like, oh, my God, they actually, John Drew actually was a millionaire. So, and, just digging into, his life, which I didn't get to talk about as much as I would have hoped in the book, but just, the drama with the Negro League baseball team and investing. And, he had to get a white stockbroker to buy stocks because black people didn't have the access back then. Mm-hmm. And just getting into the details of his life and, how hard he worked. His first trolley bus before he sold it to SEPTA, he drove the actual bus. He drove the bus for years before, he got from behind the wheel. Yeah. So it was really, really thrilling to kind of learn about his life and a little bit of my own history.
I can only imagine. Between the years of 1830 and 1927, as the last generation of black folk born into slavery was reaching maturity, a small group of smart, tenacious, and daring men and women broke new ground to attain the highest levels of financial success. Their stories are told in this book, Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. The author of that book is Shomari Wills, our guest right now on Tavis Smiley.
From the Merck Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go, shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Parents, we know we can't protect our kids from everything. Eventually, they're going to bump their heads or scrape their knees. But we can protect them from 6 types of cancer. HPV, or human papillomavirus, is a common, preventable virus that can cause cancer later in life. The HPV vaccine prevents human papillomavirus and all the cancers it can cause. The American Cancer Society recommends getting your sons and daughters the HPV vaccine starting at age 9 to protect them later in life.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden is expected to speak about veterans' benefits during his visit to Utah. Biden is scheduled to land in the state on Thursday. It'll be the one-year anniversary of the PACT Act, which aims to provide health care to veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. The president will also participate in a campaign reception in Park City. In Virginia, its lieutenant governor, African-American Winsome Earl Sears, has appointed a new director of community engagement. Reverend Joe Ellison will now serve in the role. The lieutenant governor says Ellison will help assist with housing, HBCUs, education, and much more. Ellison has a long resume that includes serving as the first state director for African American engagement by the RNC. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
An accident that has been working on the 134 westbound in Toluca Lake just before Lancashire. Traffic's heavy from Hollywood Way out to Woodman, and the 101 south is slow coming away from Tampa Avenue over to the 170. 405 south jams up from Sherman Way to Sunset. We had a stalled vehicle 10 west at Overland. Traffic's heavy still coming away from Western.
Fall into autumn hiring with Indeed. Their all-in-one solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and immediately get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Wendy's BOGO $1 deal is back at participating Wendy's. Buy a Dave's Single, spicy chicken sandwich, 10-piece nugs, or medium frosty, and get another for $1. Double your deliciousness. Hurry, this BOGO deal won't last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers put up 13 runs in San Diego on Monday. Mookie Betts hit a grand slam. He now has 31 homers this season. The Dodgers take 3 or 4 from the Padres to move to 19 games over 500. Former Lakers star Derek Fisher is the new boys basketball coach at Crespi High School in Encino. He coached the New York Knicks for 2 years and the LA Sparks for 3. Dorsey High School's football team will play King Drew at the Coliseum in a city section matchup on October 27th. Rams coach Sean McVay said wide receiver Cooper Kupp will miss the first 2 preseason games. Kupp is recovering from a hamstring injury. The Chargers are expecting their defense to be one of the best in the NFL this season with the addition of former UCLA linebacker Eric Kendrick. Kendrick was an 8-year standout with Minnesota. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you and the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though?
On a Mission Youth Travel presents the 2023 Morehouse Homecoming HBCU College Tour, October 25th through October 29th in Atlanta, Georgia. Open to high school students grades 9 through 12. For more information, please call 323-298-4779. Again, 323-298-4779. Students will tour Morehouse College, Spelman College, Clark Atlanta University, Alabama State, and Tuskegee University. Email info@onamissionyouthtravel.com. Again, info@onamissionyouthtravel.com. The HBCU tour price includes all meals, transportation, round-trip airfare with one checked bag, hotel accommodations, all museums, college tours, and admission to the Morehouse versus Kentucky State University homecoming football game. Spaces are filling up quickly, so call today to sign up. 323-298-4779. Again, 323-298-4779.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
Our guest in this hour is Shomari Wills, author of the book Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. And now I want to move straight away into some of the persons on that list and give Show an opportunity to just download us on some of these persons. And I love, as I'm sure you do as well, learning new black history. This book kind of reminds me of the Hidden Figures movie and book. Because I love learning about stuff I otherwise didn't know. I love being introduced to people whose stories I didn't know, and this book does just that. We knew that somebody black had money before Oprah and Jay-Z and Beyonce, but it's nice to know who those persons were by name, and that's what Show Wills brings us, courtesy of his text. So we all know the story. We all know the story of Madam C.J. Walker, most of us do. Madam C.J. Walker, who was regarded as the first female black millionaire. She earned that nickname, the first female black millionaire. So most of us know the story of Madam C.J. Walker. Maybe we'll get to that, but I don't want to start with that because, again, we know a little bit about that. I want to bring you some stuff that you ain't never heard of. Let me start with Mary Ellen Pleasant, who used her gold rush wealth to further the cause of the abolitionist John Brown. Show, you might appreciate this. I was thinking the other day about my late friend Dick Gregory, the famed comedian. We all know Dick Gregory. So Dick Gregory and I were in we were in Memphis, Tennessee one night, and I was saying to Dick Gregory, who was a friend of Dr. King, that to my mind, Dr. King is the greatest American we have ever produced. That's my assessment, as this audience knows. And Dick Gregory said, I'm not so sure, Tavis. I said, well, who you got? If you ain't got Dr. King, who you got? And this Negro said John Brown. And we argued for an hour and a half about John Brown versus MLK. I'll never forget that fight, that debate, as long as I live. But I said MLK, he said John Brown. Here comes Mary Ellen Pleasant, who used to gain her gold rush wealth to further the cause of the abolitionist John Brown. So tell me, Show, about Mary Ellen Pleasant.
Well, you know, one thing that's reported that W.E.B. Du Bois said about Mary Ellen Pleasant is that if she had been a white man, she would have been president, which is, you know, high praise from the great W.E.B. Du Bois.
Oh, yeah.
So she was born during slavery. She was free, you know, supposedly. She was born in Philadelphia, which was a non-slave state. And her father sent her to Nantucket, which is one of only 2 places that had schools for black children during slavery, you know, the island of Nantucket in Massachusetts. The white family that was supposed to be looking after for her there actually kept the money that her father sent and put her to work. So she grew up working in this white family's general store with no education, no formal education. And, you know, she basically educated herself, you know, by keeping the books in the general store. She learned how to write and do math. And she learned about business by working in a general store, but also because Nantucket was in the middle of a whaling boom at the time she was growing up. Think Moby Dick. And, you know, you had all this tremendous wealth being produced by whaling, and there were even black whalers who were making a lot of money. So she grew up in a boomtown. She ended up leaving Nantucket, you know, right after she became an adult and moving to Boston. And she married a Cuban-American abolitionist and businessman who was very, very rich. He died a couple years into her marriage and left her, a significant amount of money. She took that money and she moved to San Francisco during the gold rush. And she started investing it. She invested in silver. She invested in real estate. She had a money lending business. She had one of her first businesses was a laundromat because it was very hard to wash your clothes back in the 1840s and 1850s during the gold rush. And you had all these miners with tobacco stains and, dust and silicate in the shirt. So, it was a very lucrative business. So she went out to San Francisco, started a bunch of businesses out there. Just every business she seemed to start seemed to just basically blow up. And before she knew it, she was a millionaire in, the late 1850s, early 1860s. And she took a significant portion of her fortune and she tried to find John Brown. She had heard about him after the Bleeding Kansas, war or skirmish, whatever you want to call it, where you had a civil war over slavery in Kansas. And she had heard about him, and so she went to look for him. She actually found him with a freed black community in Canada that was hosting him for a speech. And she gave him a significant amount of her money. And he used that money, of course, to fund the raid at Harper's Ferry, which many historians believe is what kind of tipped us into the Civil War and the abolition of slavery. And nobody knew that she did it for years. She kept it secret because we all know about the Secret Six, which was the group of funders, white funders of John Brown, who the government tried to hunt down. And there were talks of executing them or confiscating their wealth, but these were all white men. And she was John Brown's seventh funder as a black woman. So you can only imagine what would have happened if they found her. So she actually, laid low, during the entire period of the Civil War. She stayed in a Union general's house and as a, basically undercover as a maid during the entire Civil War. Just every day scared they were going to find her, that she was the one that gave John Brown all that money. And then after the Civil War, she was active in, San Francisco for years. She desegregated the trolley. One of the first black folks to work on the trolley in San Francisco, I believe actually the first, was Maya Angelou. So she kind of opened that door that Maya Angelou ended up walking through. She fought for divorce rights for women. She fought for the rights of blacks to testify in court, which is something that we didn't have. And she just spent the rest of her life just funding causes and trying to find black folks jobs and investing in black businesses. And she was just really, a giant. And, she, died right before the Great Earthquake in the early 1900s in San Francisco. And so, some people think that earthquake was her spirit. So she was just an amazing person, and you can kind of see why W.E.B. Du Bois thought she would have been president if she was a white man.
No question about it. And it's amazing to hear you retell the story as told in greater detail, of course, in the book Black Fortunes. But I love hearing that story of this black woman who funded John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry. I bet you didn't know that, and now you do. I wonder if Dick Gregory knew that. I would have used that argument in my debate with him about John Brown versus MLK. I was saying, Brother Dick, John Brown was funded by a sister named Mary Ellen Pleasant. I digress on that point. What is fascinating for me, which we're talking about when we come forward with our guest in this hour, Shomari Wills, author of the book Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. What's fascinating is I look at this list, and I saw this last night, of course, and saw it actually prior to last night, reading the book and preparing for our conversation, going through the text. But of these 6, 4 are black women. The first 6 black millionaires, those who escaped slavery and became millionaires, 4 of the 6 are African American women. There's a whole lot of commentary that we can offer about that, and we'll offer some of that commentary when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive, unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
MC Light, or AARP, hip-hop, the cultural phenomenon that took New York by storm in 1973, is celebrating 50 years of rocking mics and crowds. Whether you're a ride-or-die hip-hop head or simply curious about its origins, check out the latest issue of AARP the magazine. It celebrates this incredible milestone with a featured story brimming with fun hip-hop facts and history. Head over to aarp.org/blackcommunity to learn more.
Community is more than where you live. It's the people in it who go above and beyond to help it thrive. During the 50th anniversary of hip-hop and the 75th anniversary of Black Radio, AARP recognizes the members, volunteers, people, and partners giving back to our communities. We believe when our efforts drive change for the greater good, we all thrive together. To learn more about how AARP supports efforts to keep our communities thriving, visit aarp.org/blackcommunity.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
What does access mean?
Access means owning a home. Access means growing my business.
Access means building generational wealth. No matter your goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Programs and initiatives provide the tools and resources to help you reach them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
We continue our conversation with Shomari Wills, author of the book Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. We were just talking about Mary Ellen Pleasant. Oh, before I do that, before I get back to this conversation, I want to mention that tomorrow at the top of our third hour, is that right, JD? Yeah. Tomorrow, top of our third hour, our guest is Stephen Reed. Stephen Reed is the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama. All I got to say is Montgomery, and I'm sure you're grinning already and laughing. Everybody has seen this videotape that has gone viral of this beatdown that these white supremacists took in Montgomery at that dock. We were our show was talking earlier about a brother whose ship wrecked in Jamaica, and he was a good swimmer. And I've seen so many memes about this brother who jumped in the water at the point of that beat down in Montgomery. I love the names. I saw one, they called that brother, what's one? I saw one, Swimmy Hendricks, not Jimi Hendrix, but Swimmy Hendricks. I saw, Michael B. Phelps. I saw Scuba Gooding Jr. The memes are hilarious to me. But it was no laughing matter. But everybody has something to say about this beatdown that these white supremacists took in Montgomery on that dock when this one black brother asked the white folk to move their boat so that the ship could come in, and all hell broke loose, as you know. If you've not seen that videotape, I don't know where you are because it is everywhere. The mayor of that city, Montgomery, who's in the middle of all this. Stephen Reed is our guest tomorrow at the top of hour 3. You don't want to miss that conversation. We'll talk to him then. But we're continuing now with Shomari Wills talking about his book, Black Fortunes. The book is it's a little known chapter in the nation's history. It's a blend, then, if you will, of Hidden Figures, Titan, and the Tycoons, because the book Black Fortunes illuminates the birth of a black business, titans in this country, and the emergence, of course, of a black marketplace. It's a story that most of us don't know, and I'm delighted to have a show on to talk about it. So I'm looking at my clock here. We'll start this. We have to continue when we come forward. But I am fascinated. As I said, there are 4 women on this list. I am fascinated and tickled, frankly, by the story of Hannah Elias. Why don't you start telling me the story? I may have to jump in at one point and pause and continue. But tell me about Hannah Elias.
So Hannah Elias, she was a millionaire, who probably her most notable achievement was she was one of the early investors that helped flip Harlem and make it black. Mm-hmm. But the way she got her money was even more interesting. She was the mistress of a white millionaire, a big glass manufacturer in New York. And, he was basically giving her money, sort of on the low, so to speak. And, she was investing in real estate, and getting wealthy herself. And, this kind of affair that he was having with her came into the public eye when another guy who happened to also be in love with her and was stalking her tried to track down her white lover and kill him. And he ended up killing the city planner of New York, basically, because, they had a resemblance. So he came up behind him and shot him. And, this became a huge scandal, this huge public official in New York getting murdered. And then finding out it was because of this black woman that had all this money. So her life became a scandal. And, from about 1908 to 1913, she was, just constantly written about in the New York papers and the New York tabloids. And she lived in this mansion right next to Central Park. It was just decked out. She had a fascination with Cleopatra, and, the whole house looked like a, Egyptian palace.
Let me jump in right quick. I knew I'd have to do this. Hold that thought. I want to allow you to continue and to finish the story of Hannah Elias. The jokes are flying in my head, right? If you're gonna be a mistress, then be like Hannah Elias. I shouldn't have said that. I digress. We'll continue when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What does access mean?
Access means owning a home. Access means growing my business.
Access means building generational wealth. No matter your goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Programs and initiatives provide the tools and resources to help you reach them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, life doesn't stop when cancer starts. After diagnosis, treatment is vital. But for some, just getting there, through appointments, chemo, or radiation, is a major challenge. You can change that. Volunteer to give rides with the American Cancer Society Road to Recovery program. Driving for a few hours of your day can make a life-saving difference for someone with cancer. Visit cancer.org/drive to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family was founded to help address domestic violence and sexual assault in the Asian and the Pacific Islander communities. The Center for the Pacific Asian Family's mission is to build healthy and safe communities by addressing the root causes and consequences of family violence and violence against women. They are committed to meeting the specific cultural and language needs of the Asian and Pacific Islander women and their families. CPAF's vision is of an Asian and Pacific Islander community that embraces healthy relationships and works in partnership with other communities to eradicate all forms of violence. To access services, volunteer, or for more info, visit nurturingchange.org. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe everyone deserves to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Dominique DePrima for KBLA Talk 1580. Are you worried about your credit score? Well, look, you can rebuild it. There are lots of factors that go into determining your credit score, but one of the most effective ways to improve your score is to consistently pay your bills on time, over time. If you're forgetful about payments, like me, try automating your bill payments. That way all your creditors get paid on time, and you'll have freed yourself of trying to remember. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I've only got about 3 minutes left, show in this conversation. I want to finish up to the extent we can, finish top lining the story about Hannah Elias. Finish telling me a little bit more about her right quick.
Yeah, so she ended up, being hated. People would gather outside of her house, mostly white folks, and throw bottles at the windows and, so on and so forth. To that point, it's interesting. She had been a self-hating black person, and she had been investing in early skin bleaching creams and, hair straighteners. And the hate that she encountered kind of turned her around. And, she ended up embracing her blackness and moving to Harlem and buying up a lot of apartment buildings in Harlem and renting them to blacks, and kind of helped turn, Harlem black. The end of her life is kind of a mystery. Nobody knows what happened to her. Some people say she actually went to Paris and kind of disappeared. But she's a really fascinating person, and, I can't really do her justice in just a couple minutes, but I encourage folks to look into her story. She's really, really interesting person.
No, interesting is one word for it. It's an amazing story, particularly her flipping Harlem and helping to flip Harlem, I should say, to make it what it became. Of course, as you know, these days Harlem is gentrifying like nobody's business. So it ain't the Harlem that it used to be. It ain't the Harlem that she helped flip. And yet the history in that area of New York, Manhattan, is amazing. And to know that a black woman was involved at the early stages of flipping Harlem to become, again, what we celebrate it as is quite amazing. So I mentioned Mary Ellen Pleasant, who used her gold rush wealth to further the cause of abolitionist John Brown. We just talked about Hannah Elias, the mistress of a New York City millionaire who used the land that her lover gave her and the money that she received to help build an empire in Harlem. Of course, we started by mentioning Madam C.J. Walker, who most of us know, who earned the nickname as America's first female black millionaire. But there's a fascinating story in this book we don't have time to get into of Annie Turnbull Malone. It turns out that Madam C.J. Walker, was an employee of Annie Turnbull Malone, who developed the first national brand of hair care products. So you know Madam C.J. Walker. You don't know the person who she actually worked for, named Annie Turnbull Malone. That story's in the book. The story of O.W. Gurley is in this book. The story of Robert Reed Church is in this book. A lot of great stories. We don't have time to do justice to all of them. But the book by Shomari Wills is called Black Fortunes, the story of the first 6 African Americans who escaped slavery and became millionaires. And as you've heard in this conversation, most of them took that wealth and used it, as Sho said earlier, to help build some part of the black infrastructure that we are still maintaining and celebrating even all these years later. And so that reality is juxtaposed against the reality we discussed yesterday about what it means to get the bag by any means necessary. I'd rather be on this list with these folk who use their money to do something inside of the black community, but I digress on that point. Sho, good to have you on. Thanks for the book, and man, I appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Tavis and you were big inspiration for me to go into journalism, so it's an honor to be on, and, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, man, you're kind to say that. I didn't see that coming. Thank you. I don't want to start crying, so I'm going to let you go. I'll talk to you soon, so thank you for your time. More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information. Will also participate in a campaign